Sorry. It is well with you. We will take you to the hospital.
Some stories don't begin with hope. They begin with a scream that no one answers, with pain so visible it becomes invisible, with a woman on her knees in the middle of a Los Angeles sidewalk, clutching her swollen belly, begging strangers for mercy, and receiving nothing but turned backs and hurried footsteps. This is the story of Nenye Beauty, a pregnant black woman abandoned by her husband and ignored by the world, whose water broke on a summer afternoon while the city walked past like she didn't exist. And this is the story of how Jin-woo Park, a Korean Mafia boss in a 3-car convoy, did what no one else would do. He stopped. What he did next didn't just save her life, it restored her faith that kindness still exists in a world that had forgotten her name. If you believe that one person's compassion can change everything, stay with us. This story will break your heart and rebuild it stronger. Hello, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video and share with loved ones, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, here's something important. We're doing a Christmas special series, and we want lots of people to indicate interest. We're creating beautiful stories of love, kindness, and gifting that will warm your heart this holiday season. If you want to be part of this, comment Christmas special right now and share this video with everyone you know. We need more subscribers to make this the biggest, most heartwarming Christmas series ever. Now, let's begin. Nenye Beauty had been standing on the corner of Figueroa and Olympic for 47 minutes when the first contraction hit hard enough to drop her to her knees. It wasn't the first contraction of the day. Those had started at dawn, mild enough to ignore while she walked the 3 miles from the women's shelter to the Department of Social Services office, where she'd waited 2 hours only to be told her emergency housing application was still pending review. It wasn't the first time her body had screamed at her to stop, to rest, to find help. But it was the first contraction that made her realize with absolute, terrifying clarity, this baby was coming. Today, now. Whether she was ready or not. And she was not ready. Nenye clutched the lamppost with both hands, her swollen belly hanging low and heavy beneath the thin fabric of her thrift store maternity dress, the only one she owned that still fit at 8.5 months pregnant. The dress was pale yellow, once cheerful, now stained with sweat and the grime of too many days worn without washing. Her feet, swollen beyond recognition, were crammed into worn flip-flops because her shoes no longer fit. Her box braids, installed 3 months ago when she still had a home and a husband and a future, were matted and coming loose at the roots. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman the world had given up on. The contraction passed after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 90 seconds. Nenye straightened slowly, breathing hard, one hand pressed against the small of her back where the pain radiated like fire. She looked around desperately, hoping someone, anyone, had noticed. The sidewalk was crowded with the usual LA afternoon rush, office workers hurrying back from lunch, tourists consulting their phones, teenagers laughing in clusters. People flowed around her like water around a stone, their eyes sliding past her as if she were invisible. "Excuse me," Nenye called out, her voice hoarse from dehydration. "Please, I need help. I'm in labor." A white woman in yoga pants and designer sunglasses glanced at her, then away, quickening her pace. "Please," Nenye tried again, louder this time. "My baby is coming. I need to get to a hospital." A young man in a business suit looked directly at her, his face a mask of uncomfortable pity, then pulled out his phone and pretended to receive an urgent call as he walked past. Nenye felt tears streaming down her face. This couldn't be happening. Not like this. Not here, on a street corner, surrounded by hundreds of people and utterly, completely alone. Another contraction hit. This one was worse, sharper, deeper, accompanied by a horrifying wetness between her legs that she recognized immediately even though she'd never given birth before. Her water had broken. A small puddle formed at her feet, mixing with the city grime on the concrete. "Help me!" Nenye screamed, not caring any more about dignity or pride, or the way people were staring now, not to help, but to judge, to film on their phones, to document her humiliation for whatever viral video would make them feel superior later. "Please, someone help me!" A security guard from a nearby building approached, but not to help. "Ma'am, you can't stay here. You're blocking the sidewalk. I'm going to have to ask you to move along." Nenye stared at him in disbelief. "I'm in labor. My water just broke. I need an ambulance." "Then call 911, the guard said, unmoved. "But you can't stay here." "I don't have a phone," Nenye sobbed. "Please, can you call for me? Please." The guard's expression didn't change. "I'm not authorized to make personal calls on company time. You need to move along before I have to call the police." The words hit her like a physical blow. The police. Because she was a Black woman, heavily pregnant, clearly poor, crying on a street corner. Because in America, being poor in public was treated like a crime. Because her pain, her emergency, her literal life-threatening medical crisis was less important than the aesthetic comfort of people walking past. Nenye sank to her knees again, this time not from a contraction, but from the crushing weight of understanding. No one was going to help her. She was going to give birth right here, on this filthy sidewalk, surrounded by strangers who would rather film her suffering than stop it. She thought about Marcus, her husband, her ex-husband now, though the divorce wasn't final. Marcus, who had promised her forever and delivered 6 months before disappearing with a woman he met at work. Marcus, who had taken their savings, their car, and every ounce of her trust when he left her 5 months pregnant with a note on the kitchen counter that read, "I'm not ready to be a father. I'm sorry." She thought about her mother in Georgia, who had told her, "If you marry that man against my advice, don't come crying to me when it falls apart." Her mother, who hadn't answered any of her calls in 3 months. She thought about the friends who had slowly drifted away when she couldn't afford to go out anymore, when her conversation became consumed with pregnancy and fear and the growing nightmare of her situation. She thought about the shelter where she'd slept last night in a room with 12 other women, where you had to hide anything valuable or it would be stolen, where the staff treated you with barely concealed contempt because poverty was your fault and homelessness was a moral failing. And she thought about the baby in her belly, the daughter she'd already named Zoe, meaning life, who deserved so much better than to be born into a world this cruel. Another contraction ripped through her. Nenye screamed, a raw, primal sound that came from somewhere deeper than pain. It was the sound of every injustice, every abandonment, every moment of invisibility concentrated into one terrible cry. And still, people walked past. That's when she heard the engines. Jin-woo Park's convoy was heading to a meeting in Century City when they hit traffic on Olympic Boulevard. 3 black SUVs, 2 Cadillac Escalades, and 1 Mercedes G-Wagon moved in formation through downtown LA like sharks through water. Expensive, intimidating, impossible to ignore. Jin-woo sat in the back of the middle vehicle, reviewing documents on his tablet. The meeting was important, a negotiation with a shipping company about container routes that served as fronts for his import business. Legitimate goods mixed with less legitimate ones. It was how empires were built in the gray spaces of the law. His driver, Min-jun, a compact man in his 50s who'd been with Jin-woo's family for 20 years, navigated the traffic with the practiced ease of someone who knew every shortcut in the city. To Jin-woo's left sat Hana, his head of security, a woman in her 30s with the kind of calm competence that came from military training and absolute loyalty. "We're going to be 10 minutes late," Hana noted, checking her watch. "Then we'll be 10 minutes late," Jin-woo replied without looking up. "Martinez can wait. It's his warehouse, not mine." That's when he heard it. Even through the armored glass and sound-dampened interior, even over the hum of the engine and the low classical music playing through the speakers, he heard a scream. Not the scream of someone startled or angry. The scream of someone in agony. Jin-woo's head snapped up. "Stop the car." Min-jun hesitated. "Sir, I said stop the car." The convoy came to a halt, blocking the right lane of Olympic Boulevard. Horns immediately started blaring behind them. Jin-woo ignored them, his eyes scanning the sidewalk to their right. That's when he saw her, a black woman on her knees on the concrete, one hand clutching a lamppost, the other pressed against her enormous pregnant belly. Her face was twisted in pain, tears streaming down her cheeks. She was surrounded by a loose circle of onlookers who were doing nothing, just watching, some filming on their phones. And there was a puddle beneath her. Even from inside the car, Jin-woo could see it. Her water had broken. She was giving birth. Right there, on the sidewalk. And no one was helping her. Something white-hot and furious ignited in Jin-woo's chest. He'd seen a lot of things in his life. Violence, betrayal, cruelty calculated and casual. But he had never, in all his years, seen something that offended his sense of basic humanity quite like this. A pregnant woman, clearly in labor, surrounded by people and utterly alone. "Hana," he said quietly, his voice carrying the kind of cold fury that made even his most loyal people nervous. "Get the medical kit. Min-jun, call Dr. Choi and tell him we're bringing an emergency obstetric case. Now." He opened the door and stepped out into the LA afternoon. Nenye was beyond rational thought. The contractions were coming so close together now that she could barely breathe between them. The pain was unimaginable, not just physical, but existential. The pain of abandonment mixed with the terror of bringing a life into a world this indifferent. She heard car doors opening, heard voices speaking in urgent Korean, but she didn't look up. What was the point? More people who would walk past, more evidence that she didn't matter. Then she heard footsteps approaching, not hurrying past but stopping directly in front of her. And a voice, deep and accented and absolutely sure, said in English, "I'm here to help you." Nenye looked up through tears and pain and saw him. A Korean man, maybe mid-30s, in an expensive black suit that probably cost more than everything she'd owned in her entire life. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, defined jaw, intense dark eyes that were focused entirely on her with an expression of controlled urgency. He was crouched down to her level, making himself smaller, less intimidating. Behind him, she could see the convoy of black SUVs stopped in the street, blocking traffic. A woman in tactical gear was approaching with a red medical kit. Two men in dark suits were forming a barrier between her and the phone-filming onlookers. "My name is Jin-woo Park," the man said calmly. "I'm going to get you to a hospital, but first, I need you to breathe with me. Can you do that? Nenye tried to speak, but another contraction hit. She cried out, her entire body tensing. Jin-woo didn't flinch. He moved closer, and to her shock, he took her hand, her dirty, sweaty hand, in both of his without hesitation. Breathe, he said firmly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Stay with me. Nenye found herself following his voice like a lifeline. In, out, in, out. The contraction peaked and slowly, agonizingly released. The woman with the medical kit arrived. Hana, Jin-woo said without taking his eyes off Nenye. Vitals. Hana knelt beside them with professional efficiency, pulling out a blood pressure cuff. What's your name? She asked Nenye gently. Nenye, she managed. Nenye Beauty. Beautiful name, Hana said, wrapping the cuff around her arm. Nenye, I'm going to check your blood pressure and pulse, okay? Just stay still for me. How far apart are the contractions? Jin-woo asked. I don't know, Nenye sobbed. Close, really close. When did your water break? Just maybe 5 minutes ago? I don't know. Jin-woo's jaw tightened. 5 minutes. She'd been in active labor on a public sidewalk for 5 minutes, and no one had helped her. Hana finished with the blood pressure cuff. BP is 145/95. Elevated but not critical. Pulse is 110. She's dehydrated and stressed but stable for now. Good. Jin-woo turned back to Nenye. We're going to get you into the car and to the hospital. I have a doctor meeting us there who specializes in high-risk deliveries. You and your baby are going to be fine. Do you understand me? Nenye stared at him. This couldn't be real. Men like him, wealthy, powerful, clearly important, didn't stop for women like her. This had to be a dream brought on by pain and dehydration. Why? She whispered. Why are you helping me? Jin-woo's expression softened just slightly. Because no one else did. And that's unacceptable. He stood and turned to Min-jun. Clear a path to the car. Hana, help me get her up. Gently. Another contraction hit before they could move. Nenye screamed, doubling over. Jin-woo immediately crouched back down, his hand on her shoulder. Breathe, Nenye. You're doing great. Just breathe. When it passed, Jin-woo and Hana carefully helped her to her feet. Nenye's legs could barely support her weight. Without hesitation, Jin-woo slipped an arm around her waist, taking most of her weight onto himself. Hana supported her from the other side. They walked slowly toward the G-Wagon. The crowd parted, some people looking ashamed now, others still filming. Jin-woo's security detail formed a protective corridor. A woman's voice called out from the crowd. Is she okay? Should someone call an ambulance? Jin-woo's head turned toward the voice with such cold fury that the woman actually stepped backward. Now you ask? His voice was quiet but cut like a blade. She's been screaming for help for nearly an hour. Where were you? The woman had no answer. They reached the G-Wagon. The back seats had been hastily converted into a makeshift bed using blankets and jackets. Jin-woo helped Nenye climb in, then followed, positioning himself so she could lean against him. Hana got in on the other side, medical kit ready. Drive, Jin-woo commanded. Cedar Sinai, emergency entrance. Run every red light if you have to. Min-jun didn't need to be told twice. The convoy lurched into motion, sirens that Jin-woo had ordered installed for exactly this kind of emergency blaring to life. Nenye felt the movement of the car, heard the sirens, felt the leather seats beneath her that were worth more than she'd earned in a year. She looked up at Jin-woo Park, this stranger who had stopped his entire day to save her, and started crying again, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming shock of being seen. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you. I can't." "Don't talk," Jin-woo said gently. "Save your strength. You're about to do the hardest thing a human being can do. Focus on that." Another contraction. Nenye gripped Jin-woo's hand so hard she felt her nails dig into his skin. He didn't pull away. He held on, steady and unshakable, his other hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "Not anymore." And for the first time in months, maybe years, Nenye Beauty believed someone. They made it to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in 8 minutes, a drive that should have taken 20. Dr. Choi, a renowned obstetrician and one of Jin-woo's most trusted private physicians, was waiting at the emergency entrance with a wheelchair and a team of nurses. The transfer was swift. Within seconds, Nenye was being whisked through automatic doors, down pristine hallways, into an elevator, and finally into a private delivery room that looked more like a hotel suite than a hospital. Dr. Choi examined her quickly, his movements efficient and calm. "You're at 8 centimeters, he said. "We're going to have a baby very soon. Have you had any prenatal care?" Nenye shook her head, shame flooding through her. I had insurance until 2 months ago. After that, I couldn't afford." "It's okay," Dr. Choi said firmly. "We'll handle it. Let's focus on bringing this baby into the world safely." Jin-woo stood near the door, watching. He should leave. This was private, intimate. But something kept him rooted there, the memory of her on that sidewalk, screaming for help that never came. Nenye's eyes found his across the room. "Don't go," she said desperately. "Please, I don't have anyone. I can't do this alone." Jin-woo looked at Dr. Choi, who nodded. "If she wants you here, you can stay." Jin-woo moved to her bedside. Hana had already positioned herself in a corner, ready to assist if needed. A nurse brought a chair, but Jin-woo ignored it, standing where Nenye could see him. What followed was hours of the most intense, exhausting, beautiful work Jin-woo had ever witnessed. He'd seen violence. He'd seen death. But he'd never seen life fight this hard to enter the world. Nenye pushed with everything she had. She screamed. She cried. She begged for it to stop. And through it all, Jin-woo stayed. He held her hand when she needed to grip something. He wiped her forehead with cool cloths. He told her she was strong when she said she couldn't do it anymore. "Yes, you can," he said firmly during one particularly difficult moment. "You've survived everything that brought you to that sidewalk. You're the strongest person in this room. Your daughter is lucky to have you. Now show her what her mother is made of." Nenye found strength she didn't know she had. At 7:43 p.m., Zoe Beauty entered the world screaming, angry, and absolutely perfect. Dr. Choi placed her on Nenye's chest, and the room filled with the sound of a mother crying with joy instead of pain for the first time in months. Jin-woo stepped back, giving them space. He watched Nenye kiss her daughter's head, watched her count 10 tiny fingers and 10 tiny toes, watched her whisper promises of protection and love into that tiny ear. And he made a decision. 3 days later, Nenye was cleared to leave the hospital. She'd spent those days in a haze of new motherhood, learning to nurse, to change diapers, to interpret Zoe's different cries. The hospital had provided everything: clothes, supplies, even a social worker who helped her fill out applications for emergency assistance. But she had nowhere to go. The shelter had a 6-week waiting list for mothers with newborns. She'd spent hours on the phone trying to find a place that would take her, coming up empty again and again. On the morning of her discharge, Dr. Choi came in with a smile. Someone's here to see you. Jin-woo Park entered, carrying a folder and wearing a different expensive suit. He'd visited once before, briefly, to check on her recovery. But this felt different, more formal. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better," Nenye said honestly. She was sitting up in bed, Zoe sleeping in a bassinet beside her. Sore, exhausted, terrified about what happens next. But better. Jin-woo nodded. He set the folder on the table. "I have something for you." Nenye's chest tightened with anxiety. Here it comes, she thought. The bill, the debt, the price of salvation. Jin-woo opened the folder. "This is a property deed. A 3-bedroom house in Baldwin Hills. Good neighborhood, good schools nearby, safe. It's owned by one of my real estate holding companies. As of this morning, you have a 5-year lease on it, rent-free, utilities included." Nenye stared at him. "I don't understand." "After 5 years, if you want to stay, we can discuss a purchase arrangement. But for now, you need a safe place to raise your daughter." "So you have one." Tears streamed down Nenye's face. "I can't accept that. That's too much." "It's not enough," Jin-woo said quietly. He pulled out another document. "This is a trust fund. I've placed $50,000 in it. You have access to $10,000 immediately for furniture, baby supplies, whatever you need to get started. The remaining $40,000 is in a restricted account that can only be used for education and childcare expenses as Zoe grows up." Nenye couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't comprehend what she was hearing. Jin-woo wasn't finished. "And this," he pulled out a third document, "is a scholarship guarantee. Zoe has a full scholarship to any private school in Los Angeles, from kindergarten through high school graduation. Tuition, books, supplies, everything covered. She'll have the education she deserves." "Why?" Nenye finally managed to ask, her voice breaking. "Why are you doing this? I'm no one. I have nothing to offer you. What do you want from me?" Jin-woo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "6 years ago, my sister died giving birth to her daughter. She had complications. She was in a hospital in Seoul, surrounded by the best doctors money could buy. But even with all that, we couldn't save her." He paused, something painful flickering across his composed features. "Her daughter survived, my niece. She's 5 now. I see my sister in her face every day. And I think about how desperately my sister wanted to live, how hard she fought, how unfair it was that money and power couldn't save her." Jin-woo looked directly at Nenye. "You fought just as hard on that sidewalk, but you had no money, no power, no one to help. You should have died there, or lost your daughter, or both. But you didn't. You survived despite everything. That kind of strength deserves to be honored, not punished." He stood. "I don't want anything from you, Nenye. I want you to raise your daughter. I want Zoe to grow up knowing her mother is a warrior who brought her into the world against impossible odds. And I want to live in a world where women like you don't have to beg for mercy on sidewalks while hundreds of people walk past." He moved toward the door, then turned back. "My assistant will bring the house keys this afternoon. If you need anything at all, you have my number. Use it." "Mr. Park," Nenye called out. He stopped. "How do I pay this back? How do I repay this kindness?" Jin-woo smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "You already did. You survived. You brought a daughter into this world. Now raise her to be as strong as her mother. That's payment enough." He left. Nenye looked down at baby Zoe, who had woken and was watching her with those brand new eyes that saw everything and understood nothing. Your mother was dying on a sidewalk, Nenye whispered, and an angel in a black suit stopped to save us. I don't know what we did to deserve him, baby girl, but we're going to spend the rest of our lives being worthy of that moment. Zoe yawned and fell back asleep, completely unaware that her life had just been given a foundation most people spend their whole lives trying to build. 3 months later, Nenye Beauty stood in the living room of her house in Baldwin Hills. Her house, with its warm wood floors and big windows that let in morning light and a nursery painted pale green where Zoe slept in a crib that Nenye had assembled herself. She'd spent the past months building a life from the rubble. She'd gotten her GED through a night program. She'd started taking online business classes using the computer Jin-woo's assistant had brought. She'd connected with other single mothers in the neighborhood who'd become her support system, her friends, her chosen family. She'd filed for divorce from Marcus, who had the audacity to call when he heard she'd had the baby, asking if they could work things out. She'd told him what she should have said months ago. I don't need you anymore. I never did. I just didn't know how strong I was alone. She hadn't seen Jin-woo since the hospital. He'd sent his assistant a few times with additional supplies, but he'd kept his distance, giving her space to rebuild her dignity and her life without feeling like a charity case. But today was different. Today, she'd received a message from his assistant. Mr. Park would like to meet Zoe. If you're comfortable, he'll visit tomorrow at 2 p.m. Nenye had spent the morning cleaning an already clean house, dressing Zoe in her prettiest outfit, and baking cookies from scratch because she didn't know what else to do with the nervous energy. At exactly 2 p.m., there was a knock on the door. Nenye opened it to find Jin-woo Park standing on her porch, holding a gift bag and looking almost uncertain, an expression she'd never seen on his face before. Mr. Park, she said, smiling. Come in. Jin-woo, he corrected gently. Please, just Jin-woo. He stepped inside, and Nenye watched him take in the space, the furniture she'd chosen, the photos she'd hung, the life she'd built with the foundation he'd given her. It's beautiful, he said. You've made it a home. Thanks to you. Zoe chose that moment to wake and start fussing. Nenye picked her up, and Jin-woo's entire demeanor softened. May I? He asked. Nenye carefully transferred Zoe into his arms. Jin-woo held her with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before, probably with his niece. He looked down at the baby who, 3 months ago, had nearly been born on a dirty sidewalk. Hello, Zoe, he said softly in English, then repeated it in Korean. You've gotten so big. Your mother is taking excellent care of you. Zoe stared up at him, fascinated by this new face, then reached up and grabbed his nose with surprising strength. Jin-woo laughed, a sound Nenye had never heard from him, warm and unreserved and completely genuine. She's perfect, he said, looking at Nenye. You're doing an incredible job. Nenye felt tears prick her eyes for the 1,000th time since that day. I don't know how to thank you. Every day I wake up in this house, with my daughter safe and healthy, and I think about what could have happened. What would have happened if you hadn't stopped? Jin-woo handed Zoe back carefully. You would have found another way. That's who you are. I just made it easier. You saved our lives, Nenye said firmly. Don't diminish that. They spent the next hour talking about Zoe, about Nenye's plans to start a small business helping other single mothers navigate assistance programs, about Jin-woo's niece who was starting kindergarten and made him promise to attend every school play. As Jin-woo prepared to leave, he handed Nenye the gift bag he'd brought. For Zoe, just something small. Inside was a beautiful children's book, in Korean and English. about a brave little girl who changed the world. And beneath it, an envelope. "Don't open it until I leave," Jin-woo said. "Please." After he'd gone, Nenye opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter in surprisingly elegant handwriting. "Dear Nenye, 3 months ago, I witnessed the worst of humanity, hundreds of people walking past a woman in crisis without stopping. But I also witnessed the best of humanity, you, fighting to bring life into the world despite every obstacle, despite abandonment and poverty and pain, despite a world that had given you every reason to give up. You're a warrior. Your daughter will grow up knowing that. And one day, when she's old enough to understand, tell her this story. Tell her that her mother is the strongest person I've ever met. Tell her that kindness exists, even when it's hard to see. Tell her that one person stopping can change everything. You don't owe me anything, but if you want to pay it forward, I have one request. Remember what it felt like to be invisible, and when you see someone else the world is ignoring, be the person who stops. Be what I was for you. Be what you needed. That's how we change the world, one stopped car at a time. With respect and admiration, Jin-woo Park. P.S. The scholarship includes college if Zoe wants it. I meant it when I said she deserves the best education possible." Nenye held the letter to her chest and cried, not from pain or fear this time, but from overwhelming gratitude and the profound understanding that kindness, real kindness, doesn't come with strings attached. It comes from people who understand suffering and choose to end it when they can. She looked down at Zoe, who was watching her with those wise baby eyes. "Your mama learned something important, baby girl," Nenye whispered. "We were dying, and a stranger became family. The world said we didn't matter, and one man said we did. And now we're going to spend our lives proving him right." Zoe cooed, her tiny fist wrapping around Nenye's finger. Outside, Jin-woo Park sat in his car for a moment before driving away, thinking about his sister who didn't survive and his niece who did, thinking about how random and cruel the world could be, thinking about how the only thing that mattered, the only thing that ever mattered, was choosing kindness when you had the power to do so. He pulled out his phone and texted Hana, "Keep an eye on them, quietly. Make sure they're safe." Then he drove back to his complicated life, the business that existed in gray areas, the meetings with dangerous people, the world where mercy was weakness and compassion was exploited. But he'd stopped on that sidewalk, and he'd do it again, every single time, because some things were worth stopping for. Some people were worth saving, and some moments, brief as they were, reminded you why being human mattered at all. 5 years later, Zoe Beauty started kindergarten at one of the best private schools in Los Angeles, her tuition covered by a scholarship from a foundation she wouldn't understand for years. Her mother, Nenye, now ran a successful nonprofit helping pregnant women in crisis find housing and medical care. And in a quiet moment at the school's opening day ceremony, when Zoe asked why that serious Korean man in the nice suit was waving at them from across the courtyard, Nenye smiled and said, "That's Mr. Park. He's family. He's the angel who stopped when everyone else kept walking." Zoe waved back enthusiastically, and Jin-woo Park, feared by many, respected by more, understood by few, smiled and thought about how one decision, one moment, one stopped car had changed 2 lives forever, and how sometimes the most powerful thing a person with everything could do was simply stop for someone who had nothing. Before you go, remember, comment Christmas special. If you want more stories of love, kindness, and the power of one person choosing to care, like and subscribe. We're building something beautiful here. And tell us in the comments, have you ever been the person who stopped? Or the person who needed someone to stop? Your story matters. Share this video. Let's remind the world that compassion still exists.